Hello, we have with us Mr. Akshay Mundra, CEO, Vodafone Idea Limited. Good to have you with us, sir. Many thanks for speaking to PTI.
Thank you very much for having me here, Momita.
So, Vodafone Idea is in the midst of a massive fundraise. An 18,000 crore FPO will make it the largest FPO ever in the Indian market. You have concluded the anchor book subscription at a 5,400 crore mop-up. Big names coming in there, marquee domestic and foreign investors coming in. Does that give you the confidence that you will be able to garner a great interest on the retail public portion as well?
So, if I may say and give a bit of a comment on the anchor book, we have announced the anchor investors, and you would have seen leading international investors like GQG, Fidelity Market Research, UBS, RWC as international investors. We also have leading names from Indian mutual funds like HDFC Mutual Fund, Motilal Oswal Mutual Fund, Quant Mutual Fund, and also insurance companies like SBI General and ICICI Pru Life. There are also some HNI investors there, and an important thing is that the allocation to hedge funds is less than 5%, which again is a representation of the strength of the book. So we have had a good start with the anchor book, and that gives us confidence that the book building exercise on the rest of the main book should also progress.
Okay, sir. I wanted to ask you, an 18,000 crore FPO, a 45,000 crore total mop-up. Is that war chest enough for Voda Idea to fix its problems? Analysts have talked about how, while it will help you with the cash flow in the near term and help improve your network expansion, there could be, it would still be, they say that it would still be tough for Voda Idea to claw back the market share even after arresting the subscriber losses. Your comments, sir?
So let me say that today what is happening is that because of lack of investments, we have not been able to participate in the growth. And so while others have been gaining market share, we have been losing market share. Now, I will not comment specifically on the market share, but what we expect is that as we make investments and largely cover our 4G population coverage gap with reference to our peers, we will be able to participate in the entire market, which will then enable us to arrest the loss of subscribers. So we are looking at a total funding which will enable us to execute our strategy. There's this equity funding plus some further equity funding coming from promoters. And also we are in discussion with our lenders to get the debt funding. And we believe all this combined together will enable us to implement and execute our strategy. It is not necessary that we are looking at a gain in market share, but we have not been participating in the industry growth until now. And with these investments in addressing our coverage gaps and some of the other competitive disadvantage which we've had, with reference to coverage and investments, we will be able to compete on a better basis going forward.
Okay, so our finance secretary yesterday, gave us support to the Voda Idea, fundraising. He mentioned that government is happy to see the capital investment plans of Vodafone Idea. I wanted to ask you, does this come as, what does this help you reassure the markets and consumers about the long-term viability of Vodafone Idea?
So I think government has always been supportive, and the biggest support was demonstrated when they announced the reforms package in 2021. So I would say the current commentary we hear from the government officials is good to hear. That just reaffirms the commitment and the support which they have already articulated in the past. So I would say this is just a continuation of the policy which they've had, and that consistency of support is definitely a big help to the company in executing its plans.
What is the likelihood of Voda Idea not being able to meet its spectrum payment dues to the government? Because some of the analysts have actually indeed expressed concerns about this once the moratorium lifts.
So let me explain this a little more clearly. And first is that the moratorium expires in September 25. Post that, people are looking at the total amount to be repaid to the government. but that total amount to be paid to the government consists of two parts. First part is the installments which have been due in the normal course of business, but there's another large chunk of a series of installments which is arising out of the deferment or moratorium of 4 years. Whatever has not been paid in this period, that creates a separate series of installments. And the two together is a large amount, I agree. Now, what has been provided for in the reforms package of September 21 is that the government has the option to convert these deferred installments into equity. So, at the end of moratorium, there are multiple factors there. Secondly, firstly, as we invest, how do our cash generation from the business improves? That is one variable. Second is that at that point of time, while I would not like to comment on the what would be the impact of the curative petition, but that is also a variable where our request is there and which has a bearing on the overall amount that we have to pay to the government. So, taking into account everything, we believe that if there is a difficulty in making those payments initially, the reforms package provides for the conversion of those installments, the deferred series of installments, into equity. And so that government support in that form continues. As we said, our bank funding or bank debt today is below 4,500 crores. So really speaking, it's only the government debt for which the government has already provided some support measures in the reforms package, which was announced earlier.
Let's turn to 5G rollout. You talked about that extensively. Vodafone Idea is looking at, you said that you're in a state of readiness and can roll out, can start the 5G rollout within 6 to 9 months of the FPO. I wanted to understand from you, given that larger rivals like Bharti Airtel and Reliance Jio have already had the first movers advantage when it comes to 5G, they've been rolling it out for the last 1 year. Do you still have a good shot at, taking away a chunk of the 5G pie, coming in as a late entrant? And when do you see monetization of 5G happening in Indian market?
So, first is that 5G, it has been, the networks have been there for a year now. And based on our experience, we have not seen it having any meaningful impact on the churn trends that we have seen. In fact, you would have seen that our overall net loss of subscribers in the last 1 year has probably been lesser than what has been in the past when 5G was not there. So, 5G itself has not had a meaningful impact. And the reason for that is clear that 5G experience on a phone or a device is not that difference between 4G and 5G. So, a customer is not feeling that difference. And to that extent, the consumer pull in wanting 5G is not there. And so, 5G, I would describe it today as good to have, but is it something which customer is actively seeking? Not so much. Of course, if I have a 5G device, at some point of time, I would want to use 5G, but it has not had a significant impact or a meaningful impact on the churn trends that we have seen. We will be investing in 5G now, and we will be having a decent coverage. So, I don't think that by investing a little later, we have missed out on anything. In fact, the challenge today for everyone who has invested is that, as you yourself mentioned, that the monetization is not happening. So, the industry also has to find a way to monetize 5G, which I believe we will find a solution. But from a consumer business, the challenge is that the experience or the use cases do not exist, which actually require 5G. 5G has been more probably devised for enterprise applications, which will come in the future. So, I don't think that somewhat later entry into 5G or rollout of 5G is going to impact us in the long run. In fact, we will be somewhat, and in fact, we will have the benefit of learning from what has happened over the last 1.5 years and maybe calibrate our investments accordingly. So, to some extent, that is an advantage.
Let's turn to tariffs, sir. India has one of the lowest telecom tariffs in the world. and investments that are returning are not equivalent to the cost of capital that is employed. Analysts are now talking about how a tariff round of tariff hike is likely post elections. Some estimates pegging it at a 15 to 17% tariff increase. Why is it that operators like you have not resorted to a tariff increase over the last couple of years? And do you agree that a tariff hike is just around the corner after elections? How big would the tariff hike round be? And would you wait for others to make the first move and follow through with a like a follow up on tariffs, or would you be keen enough to also perhaps be the first mover on tariff hikes?
So I think I'm not in a position to answer many of your questions given the nature of the time we are in because of we are under a capital raise. Let me just tell you, and I think it goes back to some of the points you are making, but expand it a little. One is that the industry has not been returning its cost of capital even when we were in a 4G era. 4G to 5G movement has happened, and the lack of return on capital has gotten more accentuated, I would say. In that scenario, and this is also an industry which has not seen the cost of capital being covered over a fairly prolonged period of time, at least 6-7 years. So there is a need for price increase is what I can say. In terms of the quantum of price increase, we have seen the last 2 price increases which have happened. You are aware of that, and it has not had an impact whereby the customer behavior changed or we lost too many subscribers or anything. So I would say that in terms of quantum of increase, what we have seen in the past has gone well in the markets. So the quantum, that is one way to look at it. In terms of the timing, I will not be able to give you any guidance except saying that there is a significant necessity to having tariff corrections so that the industry itself can start returning its cost of capital.
So there have been some concerns lately about how a potential large equity dilution could happen in event of conversion of government dues. I think one of the brokerage reports even talked about an 80% or over 80% holding by the government in case such a conversion of government dues takes place. I would like your comments on that.
So firstly, let me mention that the report which you are referring to has some factually incorrect information, and it is I would say it is a bit of a wrong way to report things without getting the facts right. So that is my comment on the specific story that you're talking about. But more importantly, in terms of dilution, I don't think dilution should be of any concern to any existing investor in our company. Where is the dilution of concern to anybody is that the existing equity base becomes a very large component of the capital employed, whereby you are relying more on the costly equity as a source of capital rather than the debt. In our balance sheet, the situation is just the reverse. We have a high debt on our balance sheet. Everybody's concern is that we have a higher leverage. Now, how can you reduce the leverage is by 2 options. Either you get more equity and use it to repay the debt, or second is you improve the operations, generate more cash and repay the debt. Now, of course, as we will make investments, we expect that our operations will improve and our cash generation will improve. But definitely that will not be enough for us to reduce the debt at a pace at which we would want to. So then to get equity, there are 2 choices. One is that you raise more equity and use it to repay the government, or if the government is itself willing to convert some of that debt to equity, so be it. In either situation, the equity as a component of the overall capital employed will always remain at a decent level, and maybe the debt is still more. So in our scenario, while conventionally it is right to say that dilution is not desirable, but that is in a situation where you already have a bit of a debt to equity ratio which is close to a point where you don't want to disturb it further. In our case, the debt is already very high, so further dilution really should not be a cause of concern to the investors.
So, what role does government play today as the largest shareholder in Vodafone Idea? What role does government play today, say, in board decisions? And what is likely to be the post FPO shareholding in case FPO is fully subscribed?
So I think the government is a shareholder. They are not on the board, so they do not participate in the board. Of course, we continue to interact with the DOT on multiple fronts. They are the policy maker. They are also a shareholder. They are our largest credit provider. So to that extent, we interact with them. But as shareholder, they do not play a role in the management of the company. And their shareholding after this issue, based on some assumptions and the preferential issue to the promoter, should be in the ballpark of 24%. I think we'll have to wrap this up because we are running out of time, Momita. Thank you.
Yes. Before you leave, I just want to get in a couple of questions. Your strategy for the upcoming auctions, being one, and two, Elon Musk's visit to India, April 21st and 22nd. All eyes are on that visit. Wanted to get a sense from how you see the visit. Also asking you because there have in the past been link-ups, for Vodafone Idea with Starlink on multiple occasions, and you have, of course, as a company, refuted that. But is there any tie-up in the offing? Is there any discussion that is going to go on, that is shaping up right now? So, two on auctions and this auction strategy and Elon Musk.
So I think on the auction strategy, it is not right for me to comment. In fact, it is not even permitted under the auction rules. So I'll not be able to comment on that, except to say that we have got two circles in which we have got renewal of spectrum, which we will decide on what to do, because some of these are fractional spectrum and all. So we have to decide, but I cannot comment on the auction strategy per se. The other item which you're referring to, Starlink and all, I think that is all market speculation. We have denied it in the past, and there's nothing further that I have got to add to that. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mundra, for speaking to PTI.